spoke well, rendered his thoughts as well as he should have, and I think you must take it more seriously, practice, and become a good communicator. Human beings are communicating animals, and your worth depends very substantially on the quality of your communication. That's why in St. Stephen's College, from its very inception, we have laid supreme importance to improving the communication skills of our students, which we do or try to do in a variety of ways. And I'm glad that you are keen to take good advantage of this emphasis and the facilities that flow out of that emphasis. Now, let us return to our journey. Quite frankly, I do not know what to tell you today. Yesterday, I was trying to tell you what God is not, which is a lot easier. I said, this kind of God is not my God. This idea of God is not my God. I don't want this kind of religion. By the way, I did a little mischievous thing yesterday. I posted the assembly address on my Facebook with the caption, "Don't read this. You will be shocked." And thousands have read it. I was simply using a little bit of psychology. Okay? Now you play these tricks. It's not a good thing to do, but sometimes you become a little shararat. You know what shararat is? Well, I don't. So you become a little naughty, I suppose, which is okay. But it's not a bad thing. It's not such a great calamity that I don't have anything specific to say to you today. Maybe it's a good thing, who knows? It's a good thing because we can now begin to think together. Will you help me? Will you? I'll get started with your permission, but I want you to actively participate in this. I have been thinking on this question at least for the last half century. And I still do not have any clear-cut answers to this. Maybe there is an answer in that, positive answer. Sometimes when you cannot say something, you have said it. When you say, for example, "Oh, I cannot tell it." I cannot tell it. You have already told it. Maybe, who knows, maybe the difficulty I face in capturing or entrapping this supreme cosmic reality called God within the narrow confines of a definition or an idea which is mine has some kind of a signpost hidden somewhere in it. And let's look at the signpost, or why the signpost is standing there at all. By the way, it was Charles Dickens who said, apologies to my colleagues and to myself, that teachers are like signposts. They show the way but never reach there. Are you aware of this? You must look up quotations on teachers, and then you will never become a teacher. I said there is a signpost standing somewhere there. And let me try to sort of talk about that to begin with. When you look at the more fundamental experiences of your life, you find it more and more difficult to define them. How do you define life? How do you define laughter? How do you actually define sorrow? What is sorrow? What is birth? What is death? What is happiness? What is intuition? What is imagination? What is intellect? Various attempts have been made to define all of these, but I have not come across any definition which enables me to settle down on any one of them. So this is one problem. The more fundamental something is, the more defined it is in terms of a definition. Shallow things can be defined. Deeper things are more difficult to understand. Surface is easy to manage. Depth is not. That's why this word depth occurs twice in this text. Deep calls to the deep. Or to use a familiar illustration, that was swimming. If you're walking on terra firma, you are in complete control. The moment you are in water, water has depth. You are not steady. And the only steadiness is absolutely momentary. And that is contrived through your swimming, thrashing about. Now, your swimming means that you are not able to master the depth. You can master the surface. That's why you are able to walk. But you can never master the depth of anything. Now, for example, love. Who has seen the depth of love? In fact, the deeper you go, the deeper it gets. So, one reason why it's difficult for us to explain God or explain God away, why it is difficult to formulate a neat and slick definition on which we can rest for the rest of our life, is that God is too fundamental, too deep. Now, I'm going to look at this slightly differently now. Now, the more local something is, the clearer we can be about it. A local idea, a local norm, a local event, a local experience. The more something becomes universal, the vaguer it becomes. Now, universal means, at its most fundamental level, almost unmanageable in scale and scope. That's what universal means. Local is manageable. Domestic is manageable, more manageable than local. Local is more manageable than national. National is more manageable than universal, right? It's like concentric circles. You put a stone in a pond, you will create a ripple. The ripple expands outwards, right? So, as the ripple expands outwards, it becomes more and more difficult to master it. Now, God, if there is a God, I'm reminded of a prayer said by a soldier as he was going to the battlefield. He said, God, if there is a God, save my soul if I have a soul. That's how vague we are. And I don't blame him. Even I am very vague. I've struggled against this vagueness for half a century, I said. Now, therefore, that which is cosmic, leave alone universal, that which is cosmic, which embraces the whole of the cosmos, cannot be captured in the hourglass of my understanding. Or let me put it differently. I'm a small part of this cosmos. I'm a small part of this college. How much of this college do I understand? Very little. I'm a much smaller part of the city called Delhi. How much of Delhi do I know? Lamentably little. I'm a much smaller part of India. How much of India do I know or can know? And then, of course, the concentric circles expanding outwards. They create an outwardly spiraling experience of incomprehension. Yet, and that's the beauty of it, I am part of it. I am part of this cosmos. So, when that which is so laughably small tries to define and encapsulate or imprison the total in a small definition, which is a small part of the small agent, there is a problem. You understand what I'm saying? My definition has to be smaller than me. Okay? No definition I create is equal to me. I am much larger than anything that I create, whether it is an intellectual web, a definition, or a piece of art, or a story, or whatever. What I create is much smaller than me. I mean, that's simple logic. And I am much smaller than the small little place, which is much smaller than the city and the country and the globe and the cosmos. And there's a statement by Tagore. One day he stood watching the majesty of the sunset, and he said, I stand under the golden canopy of your evening sun and look you in the face. You understand? I stand under the golden canopy of your evening sun and look you in the face. What Tagore means is that the sun, these are poetic symbols, the sun is only the face of the divine, if at all. I mean, how else do you, this is not to say that literally the sun is God's face and therefore to see God you keep looking at the sun. You will end up blind. These are poetic statements. That is to say that God's face is cosmic. It far transcends any norms and means that I as a human being can command. That's what it means. But I have an elevated, iridescent experience of the glory of your being, which is transfused into the whole of this cosmos, of which I am such a humble, insignificant part. That's what he means. If that be the case, if there is a God, and all of us agreed that there is, then we have to accept the fact that our means for imprisoning the being of God within the ambit of a small definition is simply impossible. It's ridiculous. But, and that's the beauty of it, even though we cannot intellectually imprison God in a definition, to us is given the opportunity, the right, the freedom to experience the splendor, the cosmic splendor, the greatness and the effulgence of the divine through all kinds of experiences. Therefore, the first thing I want to tell you is that if there is a God, it's up to you to believe it or not. I'm not here to drive a belief into you. I'm only here to think with you. If there is a God, that God has to be experienced. Our intellect is far too inadequate. Any of our isolated faculties is far too inadequate to relate to God, to comprehend God. God has to be experienced with the whole of our being. And the fuller you are, the complete you are, the more complete you are, the more perfect you are, the greater, the clearer, the happier your experience and understanding of God. Now, many months ago, I quoted a principle from cognitive psychology which says that what you see depends on where you, does anyone remember the last word? What you see depends on where you stand. Clear? What you see, if you keep forgetting what I tell you, then what is the point? You see, all of the insights I've given to you must add up to something. We're not here just to discharge an obligation. We are here to grow. And this is just about the most unique opportunity you have. Throughout your life, you will know this. You will not have an opportunity like this. And if you don't take it seriously, it's rather sad. So, what you see depends on where you stand. Now, when in cognitive psychology we say where you stand, it does not merely depend on the physical location. I stand here, I stand there. It also means where you stand in relation to yourself. Now, it's one of the most difficult questions. It's one of the most important questions, crucial questions. Where do you stand in relation to yourself? In other words, put philosophically, who are you? Where are you in relation to yourself? I have said this to you on many occasions before, and it bears repetition, that all of us, including the best of us, are only fragments. Pathetic fragments. We have not come into the fullness of our being. We are so great in our potential, incomprehensibly great in our potential. But we stay stuck in our small territories, in our small little egos. And because we are so small, we keep strutting on the stage of life, trying to draw attention to ourselves. Please look at us. The moment you reach somewhere near your true scope, your actual shape, your genuine potential, you'll be completely liberated. You'll be like the sun. The sun doesn't want anyone to look at it. The sun gives light to the whole world. That's how you become. So none of us is anywhere near the mark. And that applies to me also. I'm consciously and painfully aware of my own inadequacies all the time. I tried to sort of militate against it. God forbid that I become complacent and fall asleep existentially. And the greatest tragedy that can happen to you young people is succumbing to the complacency on account of having got into St. Stephen's College and to say, yes, we are Stephanians, therefore we have arrived. You have not arrived. You will not arrive till the last day of your life. That's why philosophers say you never are until you are dead. Can you remember this? You never are until you are dead. What does it mean? It means that only when you breathe your last, the journey of your life is done. But at that time, in a brilliant flash of the flickering light, before it goes out, you will know whether you are a 10% human being or a 20% human being or a 100% human being. If you're a 100% human being, you will die in ecstasy. If you are a 5% human being, you will die in remorse, regret, and in terror. Please remember these words. Therefore, knowing as I do that I am only a fragment of myself, I am realistic enough to know that what I experience of the divine is such a small part of it. Now, education today does not develop the whole person. The philosophy of education in St. Stephen's College is the development of the whole person. That's where some of these facilities are here. It doesn't exist anywhere else because the philosophy doesn't exist anywhere else. While you are in St. Stephen's College, you must do all you can to develop your personality in an all-round fashion. Your aim must be to achieve perfection, which will be my theme tomorrow, because that's part of the quest to understand God. For the time being, let's rise for prayer.